And want to take this moment to give a big shout out and thank you to, usually at this time David would call in and do a fantasy football thing, but David is, I guess he's going to be at the Fiesta Bowl, so I guess he's en route. And so, I want to thank him for calling the show throughout the year and helping the show grow and helping me, you know, do my radio show. And I appreciate all that he has done for me this year. And now let us get to the bad. It's been a bad year in sports, as it's been a bad year with this computer sometimes, with these carts that just go off on their own. It has been a bad year in sports because of there's been so many scandalous things that have happened. Too many things to mention on air, and so I'm not going to bore you with everything. But I want to talk quickly about the bad this week in the world of sports, as I do every week. I talk about three football teams that, just to me, just are just simply bad. I think the Jets did all that talking, and the Giants stepped all over them during their game. I think the Jets don't deserve to make the playoffs, and hopefully they won't. But the fact that Tennessee and Cincinnati both have to lose, and they have to beat, you know, a hapless Miami team that's probably playing for their own lives this coming weekend. So who knows what's going to happen? But in my opinion, the Jets basically got it handed to them, and I'm happy to see that it happened. You don't talk the talk if you can't back it up, right? Brandon Jacobs was on fire after the game, going off on Rex Ryan, which I thought was apropos, and I thought was necessary. Another bad, San Diego. Norv Turner, you've had so many jobs in this league. Your fame came because of your success with the Dallas Cowboys, which got you your first head coaching job with the Washington Redskins, and it didn't work out in Washington. And then they put you back in San Diego. You've had the best talent of any team in football over the past 7 years. You've had the best receiving core. You've had the best tight end. You had the best running back in LaDainian Tomlinson. Philip Rivers is no slouch. You've had outstanding players on defense. And you haven't gotten it done. And I got a funny feeling you and Mr. Smith, Mr. A.J. Smith, are going to be fired at the end of this season because there's no excuse for the inept performances that your team puts up. For your team to go into Detroit this past weekend and get taken to the woodshed. Yes, Detroit was riding high on the possibility that they could make the playoffs for the first time and since 1999. But so what does that have to do with you? And for you guys not even to show up, you deserve to be watching the playoffs at home with me. I feel badly for putting the Houston Texans in this category, but you know what? You're done. You're going to lose. You're going to play this week against Tennessee, which you might lose, which I think you're going to lose. And in your first round playoff game, you're going to get eliminated because you may have to play them again. And if it's not them, you may have to play the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know if Pittsburgh wants to get some revenge on you since you beat them early in the season. And yes, I know you can't be mad because you have injuries, and injuries are part of football, and we all know it happens. But very unimpressed with your performances as of late. So let's talk about the bad this year in sports. And one of the worst bads in sports this season, no question, has been concussions. For Sidney Crosby, a 24-year-old youngster, to be put in a situation where he may have to retire because of concussions, it's pretty sad. Here we are in a time period in our life where we have all these advances in science and all these advances in electronics and it's just a whole bunch of different categories, and we can't develop a helmet that keeps people safe in football or keeps people safe in hockey. I'm surprised concussions haven't permeated boxing. I'm surprised we haven't heard about boxers, whether it's mixed martial arts or professional boxing, where concussions has derailed the careers of certain boxers. Because all it is being punched in the head, and of course we all know in boxing you get punched in the head quite a bit. It's sad, that concussions are now becoming such an issue that the NFL is even putting a guy on the sideline now to monitor athletes to make sure that they don't run back onto the field after they've been hit in the head. It's sad that the NHL, a coach the other day, I believe the Penguins coach, was talking about how if this concussion syndrome wasn't Sidney Crosby, if it was somebody else, would we be focusing on it so much? And though he may be right, the fact of the matter is maybe that's why God made it become Sidney Crosby, because it's making us focus on it more. I mean, don't get me wrong. I want to see Sidney Crosby play. But I'm certain, as most people are, that they want to see Sidney Crosby around for his kids and his grandkids and not putting a gun to his mouth because he can't handle the hum and the bells that he hears in his ears because of concussions. And it's sad. But unfortunately, the nature of sports today and in our past is that we haven't done enough to make sure this ailment or this condition is treated properly. We rely way too much on the athlete to tell you whether or not he or she is prepared to go back onto a floor or onto a field or onto the ice. And therefore, these athletes are suffering worse conditions afterwards. Another bad, you know, I personally feel that the BCS should be dissolved completely. For Michigan and Virginia Tech to be playing in a BCS bowl game when Boise State only loss this year was a 3-point loss at home, excuse me, a 1-point loss at home when their kicker missed a field goal, granted. Michigan with 2 losses, Virginia Tech with 2 losses. Are you trying to say that Boise State won't travel? Do people not remember the first game of the season in college football this year? It was Boise State against Georgia in Atlanta. And Boise State traveled a ton of people to the Georgia Dome to see their team dismantle the Bulldogs. Alabama should not be playing for the national championship. I don't care if it's about the best 2 teams. It's not about the best 2 teams. It's about champions. What's the point of having a conference championship game or have conference championship period when you're just going to pick 2 teams to play in the championship game who you deem to be the number 2 and 1 teams in the country? There have been several years where Florida State, where Miami, where USC, where Texas has been the second best or best team in the country at the time the bowls roll around, and they're not playing in a championship game. It's a travesty that they decide this year to use Alabama because of the over adulation that Alabama and the SEC gets for being good football. They're not good football. It's garbage football. If you want to sit around your house all day long and watch 6-3 football games or watch one defense smother another team and say that's good football, then something's wrong with you. Did you watch the game last night? I know Chris Spielman last night sounded like he was about to cry because there was no defense played. Yes, defense is, I'm going to talk about that in a second. Defense is a part of football, and defense supposedly wins championships. But the fact of the matter remains, we want to be entertained when we watch sports. That's why we watch it. And if people are loving the SEC so much as they do every year, I can't, it's ad nauseum. You want to watch that kind of football, then move to the South. If you want to watch football played, football where these guys are actually in their next jobs or their next chances playing football, playing in the National Football League, not every team is loaded with SEC players. Not every team has SEC quarterbacks leading them to Super Bowl championships. So I'm not all for this SEC nonsense. I'm for a playoff. Hopefully it'll get done soon. Maybe Warren Buffett, or maybe the guy who won the $200 million from New York. Maybe you ought to put together something and get a championship game played. Put some money together, get some sponsors going so we can get a national championship in college football. Other bad this year, the lockouts. The lockouts in the NBA and the NFL were a joke. They absolutely helped no one. They absolutely hurt everyone. In the NFL, look what the lockouts did to the Indianapolis Colts. Peyton Manning could not go to the facilities to be checked, could not go to the facility to rehab his neck, and therefore he missed the whole season. It's an absolute joke what the lockout did in the National Football League. Teams and players are still getting paid. Yes, rookies are not getting paid because they don't deserve to be paid. They deserve to be getting the money after performance contracts. We agree with that 100%. But the simple fact that, you know, the lockout was supposed to be some type of, you know, earth-shattering, I don't know, tactic to try to make the players see that the owners want a piece of the pie or the owners want to be more involved or what. I don't even know what it was about in the NFL, to be honest with you. It's because at the end of the day, teams all still split the money. The contract with the NFL actually just got re-upped for more money. The owners are still making money. The players are still making money. What was the point? And the NBA lockout, the Lakers are the only team that got screwed so far out of the NBA lockout because they won't let the Lakers have the players that they were supposed to have. Chris Paul should have been running the point for the Lakers these last 3 games. The Lakers basically were told, because you're too good, you can't get a good player. The NBA lockout did absolutely nothing. All it's going to do in a couple years from now is make the league shrink because teams can't afford to keep up. A lot of bad stuff, folks, in this year, and a lot of ugly things as well. And we'll continue to talk about the bad in sports on 89.7 KLAS FM after this.
How'd you like to get